Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Airsoft, where today we're going to disassemble this Cm.033 M1A1 Thompson. So I just want to make a note on safety. Whether I'm disassembling, unboxing, chronoing, whatever it is I'm doing, I may always make sure I'm in a completely safe environment. So that means most of my videos I'm always wearing eye protection just to make sure that my eyesight stays safe. Before I do that, I always make sure that there's no ammunition in any of the mags or in the gun itself. I make sure that the mags are unloaded and unwound to make sure that nothing can happen with that. Obviously, if I'm chronoing, then I have absolutely definitely got my eye protection on to protect myself. I even make sure that my batteries are removed and out of the way so that I know I'm in the safe environment. I also make sure that there's nobody else around as well either, so I'm always in a safest possible environment. If you are working with airsoft stuff, please make sure you do the same. Hi guys, and welcome back. If you do find this useful today, please do like and subscribe because you'll be really helping me out. So hopefully you've seen the unboxing of this M1A1 and you come back to see what the internals are like, and we're going to get started pretty much straight away. So I've done the usual safety checks and made sure that it's empty, the battery's out, the mag's gone and everything. So let's get cracking. So hopefully I can remember most of this disassembly. First thing I'm going to look to do is get the stock off at the back, and I'm just going to open the stock plate up. I'm going to open that and I'm going to pull the wiring out just so it doesn't catch or snag. There's no things down there. Now hopefully it should be a case of these two screws here. Like everything, make sure when you're taking screws out you know where they've come from. They are two different lengths, so the short one to the front and the long one to the back. Now I'm pretty sure, and it does, that screw doesn't need to come out, and or maybe it does, it's causing issues with the wiring, so I'll undo this screw first. So I'm going to undo this screw here, and what I've noticed is on the other side this bolt's come out the back, so let's just hold that, or nut rather. So that came out the right hand side, the nut's possibly going to drop, and all that did was allow me to get access to the wiring there. Now it has been covered in sellotape, and I assume that's to keep it stuck together, so I'm just going to separate that. When you're putting this screw back in to the stock here, you might find that if you're looking through this side you might see the wiring is in the way, so you may just need to get a thin screwdriver, and it's best for the wiring to go under the screw and not over the top because there's not much room. So you just pull it down with a screwdriver, feed the screw in and tighten it down. There we go, that's the sellotape out of the way, and that means now that when we're reassembling that'll move quite easily, and then that screw can go back in afterwards. So I'll get that out of the way. If you are interested, obviously down the stock there is plenty of room. You could in theory remove some of this internal structuring if you wanted a much bigger battery, but you're going to lose a lot of the stability and structural integrity of that. Now we're down to this, and it's kind of starting to look like one of the old school sort of tanker style ones. So what I'm going to do is there's a little depression pin there, and if I remember correctly, if I push that in, the lower receiver will come part way out, and then I have to press it again and it releases the rest. There we go, and there's the gearbox system. So I'll put that out of the way in a minute. When you get to the point where you're reassembling the upper to the lower, what you're looking for is sort of obviously these gaps here sort of match in with these gaps on the lower receiver, and what you're looking to do is pull the charging handle back, because otherwise it's going to get in the way and stop your lower going in, and you want to line up like that and drop it in. Now what's going to happen is the peg here at the back is going to get in the way, so you're going to have to push the peg in. When you do come time to reassemble the upper and lower, it might be worth just putting a little bit of something just to keep that glued down, or basically doing this upright like this. But basically what you're looking to do is get these gaps either side of the gearbox lined up with these pegs here and sliding it together. The charging handle is going to be in your way, so the first thing you're going to have to do is pull the charging handle back and then drop it in place like that. You can then, as soon as you've got it lined up and moving, you can let go of the charging handle. Now at this point I lifted the back down, well, pulled it down slightly because there's the little button in the back, and now the little button that comes out the back is currently stuck up there. So if I press that in, you'll notice then it slid out and their button came out. That's going to cause issues, obviously, if you're not careful. Once it's on like that, then you can put the stock on, and the stock needs to be the last thing that goes back on. And there is the upper inside of the upper receiver. So we've got there the little depression button, which I'm not sure how that will come out. It looks like I can pull it out. So undoing these little plates here will give you access to sort of the underside of the sight block there. I'm pretty sure that's adjustable. And then we've got the hop and barrel assembly here. But what we're going to do first is we're going to get rid of this handguard and everything. So I'm going to disconnect this handguard. Should, I think, if I remember correctly, just be the one screw there. Lift that out of the way, and that handguard does just come off. Next, we've got these two screws here. Put that over to one side with that, and this one here. And that, I believe, releases, might even be the grub screw there as well. Now that is a teeny tiny little grub screw in there that holds that on, and it looks like it is that. So I'm just going to grab my precision tools, Torx in it as well, and there it is. So I'm just going to remove that fully, and I'm going to keep that on the end of the bit there, just so I know I don't lose it. Now that should, and it does, just releases the outer barrel. So I just removed it out the top there, and it was just one little grub screw, and that's all cast as one single piece. Gets that out of the way, and then to get the barrel out, it looks like it's these two little screws here. That's one. And there it goes. Get that other little screw. So there we've got a disassembled upper receiver with our sort of metal plate. On the inside of this metal plate here, you can possibly might be able to see, I can push that in and out. There is, there we go, a Phillips head in there that I can remove that charging handle and replace it if I need to. Put that back in place. There we go. And that's pretty much everything I believe that you need to see and know in the upper receiver. So the barrel then, box standard, it is a bit dirty. Now that's interesting. I'll fold that down. I don't know if you can see that in there or not, possibly, but that is one of the sort of like shaped nubs. It's not a normal nub. It's got a split down the middle, and it was very, very happily hopping 2 5s. With no issues whatsoever. Now, if you're looking down the gun, to turn the hop on, you are rolling the gear up, and to turn the hop off, you're rolling the gear back down. Now, what I will say is there is no real retention on there, so I would expect that if you were using this, that your hop possibly might unwind as the game is going on. So you could possibly put maybe a little bit of an O-ring in there, maybe pack it out with a little bit of tape or something just to firm it up and give it a little bit of friction to keep it in place. But just to be a warning, that's not freely moving, but there's no real pressure on there that's going to keep any hop in place. So now we're down to the lower receiver. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera down so we can look at this a little bit more focused. So now we're down to the lower then, and we're going to get this apart. There is a silver metal piece here that keeps trying to fall out. That will probably come out as we're obviously taking out everything else. Now the first thing I'm going to do, in fact I'll tell you what, I'll take that through there and I'll take that metal bit out. So that just came out of that hole in there. And that's obviously part of the stock retention system. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the pistol grip, and we'll have a look underneath. So that is quite thin plastic on the sides, but quite thick at the front and back. And that is covering a short shaft motor. That is a relatively, I'm not actually entirely sure what gearbox that even is. So let's have a look then. I believe I need to remove these selector knobs. So I'll get my precision tool back. So I'm using a Torx 6 for the grub screw and for these little selectors as well. Oh, it's a good job I spotted that. The little white bit there that's come out, that comes out from where that spring is, that's the little click bit that when you feel it click, that's what's clicking. So I'm going to very carefully put that over there with it. And that's left me with a little screw in there, which I'm going to do in a second. Let's undo this one. See, I do remember this being a bit fiddly. And then do the exact same with that. I'm going to turn this one upside down though. And there is the little white bit already in that. Now those look like they are generic adjusters and that they should, in theory, go on either one of these posts. But what I have done is I've just kept them separate so I know which is which. So I'm going to undo. That's not getting great. Undo these little tiny screws. And that releases that peg out of there. So if you can see in there, this peg is actually shaped. It's flattened off on one side of that semicircle. You can see it better there, look. And that matched in with the orientation in there. So I'm going to put that with that one because I know which one it is. And do the same with this. Unscrew this. Not quite enough. And I'm pretty sure once these are out, that should be the gearbox. There we go. And that's the exact same again. It's partially shaped. There we go. Semicircle to match the hole in there. And that should, and it does, famous last words potentially, release the gearbox. I want to say it's a version 6, but I could be wrong. Now, is that the wiring's just sticky in a little bit there. There we go. Oh, there's one of those little cams come out. I'll figure that out in a minute. In fact, let's it's definitely coming, but this wiring, the shrink wrap on this wiring is getting stuck as I'm pulling it away. So what I might do is I'm just going to take those connectors off that motor. I'm just going to pull the wiring. There's the other cam. I'll figure that out in a moment. Tell you what, I seem to think before I used to take the motor off before I took the gearbox out, so let's try that. So as before, make sure you keep the screws together so you know which is which. Let's just check that those are the same. Yeah, those screws are the same, so it doesn't matter which way those motor screws go in. There's your generic, that looks like one of their budget, you know, the sort of same motor you get in the really low cost sort of CM515 type guns that are bottom budget. It's one of those type of motors. So hopefully now, there we go, that was much easier, made life easier. Now I seem to think it's a version 6. Wow, there's stuff dropping off from all over the place here. Let's have a look here then. How does this go? Bear with me. I'm going to double check how this goes together and then I'll come back and I will update you on its workings. So it took me a few seconds, but we've got it sorted. So we're looking very carefully at this. I'll take these away a minute and we'll look at this. So the selector plate then, it is flimsy plastic, I'm not going to lie. It's very soft and delicate. So the hook part here goes under the trigger block and sits in this track like that, moves quite happily along like this. I am right, it is a version 6 gearbox. The next part we're going to put in is this cam. Now obviously make sure that the side that matches, obviously that side needs to go into this hole, and what this controls is your firing mode. So this will either lift that bar up and engage full auto, or it will allow the bar to come back down on its spring and it will spin it all the way around, and that will engage single shot. The other one, again, making sure that the protruded bit goes down. This is your safety, so if you push it forward like that, that will engage your safety there, look. And then if you roll it back the other way, it's going to push it out of the way and lock back down and allow you to full auto. So those are the settings that you need to have. Those, that's the position that you need to have that in when it goes back in to the lower receiver. Okay, so I'll take those out of the way and we will have a look inside of this version 6 gearbox. Now, it is a very long time since I've been in one of these. Let's have a look. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove, I'll remove the top plate and then we'll see what is happening under there. So this is the same gearbox as a P90, I believe, which somebody recently requested. So if people want a P90 on the channel, let me know and I will get one to unbox and disassemble. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that, making sure to obviously keep everything secure and where I need it to be. Well, that's a longer screw than I was expecting. Well, that must actually go all the way through. So put that down. Now we've got obviously screw here, this screw here and this screw here. Now the nozzle itself is not looking the best quality, but then I have noticed it has got a blue piston in there, which is reassuring that the piston at least is one of their better quality ones. So let's have a look. Just be careful on this screw because it has got a brass tube with it that obviously it goes through. I assume that's to stop you over tightening the screw and damaging the gearbox. So I'll put that one there. Now when I take this one out, I would expect that this back plate here can and will come out. So put that down there. And we've got this screw here. And I believe that should, when I remove this screw, release the trigger block. And it does. There's our trigger block removed. It's okay quality. There's the trigger. It's sort of like an AK style, but not an AK style, but not an AK, sort of similar sort of system where you got like the two parts working against each other. So I'll put that out of the way. Keep it with its screw. And then we've got the last screw at the front there. There we go, that's a little screw. And then what I'm going to do is the usual thing. I'm going to brace down the spring guide. Well, I'll separate it, there it pops. And there we go. So, we've got a plastic spring guide with just 2 O-rings on it. We've got a standard, well, that's actually a linear spring, isn't it? Oops, it's easy. And I'm dropping stuff all over. It is tapered at both ends as well, so just to be aware of that. I don't know if that's a standard or the downgrade, if it came out of the box indeed at the FPS that they're saying. There is the cut-off the anti-reversal latch there, which will sit in there like that to catch the gear from spinning backwards. Then we've got, there's the brass tube, a little bit fiddly. Obviously it's daubed with a standard blue grease. When I lift the tappet plate out, the spring is on the underside, so I'll lift that up. There's the spring there for the tappet plate. The nozzle is obviously mounted up at the top there. We'll check the compression. Let's have a look at so it's a cheap looking piston head. There is absolutely no compression in there whatsoever. It is a vented cylinder as well, although the vented cylinder does look nice. If I uprated the air seal on that, I would expect that the FPS would probably go up quite dramatically. But I'm going to leave it as it is because it's the FPS that we want at the minute. And before long, this won't even be mine. Obviously, if there's no air compression anyway, the air nozzle is going to do nothing at all. But it was just to show you. The gear set looks like it's fairly standard, like they've got in the 515 and everything. The bushings are plastic though. They've put plastic bushings in there instead of metal or bearing based. But then I suppose at under £100, what do you want really, sort of thing. Even Tokyo Marui put plastic bushings in a lot of their stuff. The grease probably needs a bit of a clean out, in all honesty, just to sort of get it cleaned up. But in general, it's not looking too bad actually. It's the gearbox casing looks fairly well cast and solid. The internals in general are good. A little bit disappointed that there's not more sort of friction holding the hop in place, but particularly the externals are absolutely rock solid. So if you can get upgrade parts, an aftermarket version 6, you might want to get hold of one and just keep it. Maybe you want to drop a Tokyo Marui gearbox in it. For me personally, if this was going to be mine, I'd definitely change the bushings for metal ones. I would upgrade the motor as well. It's a short shaft motor to a bit better rate of fire, and I'd look at downgrading the spring but upgrading the air seal, just to sort of get a weaker spring producing a higher FPS, because that way then you're putting less stress on the gearbox, and it's obviously better for it overall. But generally, it's fairly decent looking inside. I'm now going to work my way back through reassembling this. So I hope this has been helpful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.